The best healthcare is there in ways big and small. There when we most and least expect it. We may not see it, but we feel it. It lets us know we're not in this alone. Everyone deserves a healthcare partner who never quits. One who's there for what matters. United Healthcare. There for what matters.
It's not just another day in your life. Things are changing for the better. At Comcast, we see those changes, and we're thinking about how we use technology today to live, work, learn, and play. And we're building for the future now, so we're better prepared for the wants and needs of tomorrow. That's why Comcast is rolling out multi-gig internet speeds to more than 50 million homes and businesses before the end of 2025, making our already industry-leading network even faster, smarter, greener, and more reliable. Over the decades, Comcast has been your partner, working hard to serve your community, and will continue to be your partner. We're expanding our gigabits, so you can enjoy the tiny bits that matter most.
Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Financially Fit Podcast. I appreciate y'all being with me here again today. For those that are returning, welcome. And I hope that you're getting some fruitful knowledge from this podcast. For those that are new, thank you for coming out today. I hope that you learned something and you take something that's valuable and meaningful to you back from today, and you apply it to your life on your journey to becoming financially fit. As I always say, I'm your host, Andre Creighton, and let's hop in. So I'm deviating a little bit today. Today, I want to start to talk a little bit about taxes. And, I think this is such an important topic because it's something that everyone has to do, right? Everyone has to pay taxes at some point in their life, right? And I say that some point in your life because, there does become a time where, you may retire and maybe you're just living off Social Security, right? And maybe you don't have a retirement. Those individuals are likely in a tax bracket where they don't have to pay taxes, right? So, needless to say, it's a very important topic, and it's something that I'm pretty passionate about. For those that don't know, I'm a CFO of a startup here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Prior to that, I spent about 7 years in tax. Worked at a couple of firms, Baker Tilly being the biggest multinational firm I worked at. And then I moved on and worked for Cargill. As you know, Cargill is the world's largest privately held company, and I worked in their corporate tax and strategy department. So I love this topic. I've spent a lot of years working with taxes, whether it's on the corporate side or high net worth individuals. It's something that's near and dear, and I continue today to still help friends and family with their taxes and giving advice as I see fit. So super passionate about it. So the things I want to talk about is really, 5 things that you should know about taxes, 5 things that sometimes can be misconceptions about taxes. So let's hop right in. Number 1, there's this misconception that you want to have a refund at the end of the year. I always think back to, I grew up in the hood, and, with growing up in the hood, there's a lot of people that are underrepresented, don't have a lot of money, right? And, March comes around and they get their tax return back, and they're like, man, I got $15,000 back this year from taxes. I'm super pumped, and I'm going to go and do X, Y, Z with it, right? But the reality is that your goal every year should be to net zero on your taxes. You shouldn't want to owe any money. You shouldn't want to receive any money. And let me tell you why. The big reason why is um, if you're receiving money, that means that you overpaid or you over withheld within paycheck to paycheck. So what that tells you is that you had too much money taken out, quite frankly, right? That's one reason why you could be in a refund situation. So you need to be cognizant of, you know, how much money you're having taken out of your check, and really making sure that you get your money today versus tomorrow, right? Because as they always say, the time value of money is a dollar today is better than a dollar tomorrow. So it's super important because if you're letting the government keep your money, they're the ones earning interest on your money, right? But think about what you could have been doing with that money over the last 12 months. So while it's cool to, get a large lump sum of money here and, end of the year and into the new year, and you're thinking about all your goals for that next new year, and you're like, oh, now I can tackle this, I can tackle that. But could you have tackled it earlier if you had less withholding? Maybe, right? So it's super important to think about that as you continue down that path of filing your taxes and preparing for your taxes. And with that being said, if you're receiving a refund year after year, you probably are a good candidate to have a tax planner, whether that's using some tool, or whether that's actually going to a CPA firm, or finding a CPA or accountant that's independent to help you with your tax planning year after year. So I would highly encourage you to do that. It's something that I do today. Obviously, I have the experience in the tax realm, so I do a lot of the planning on my own, but I still lean on some of my friends that are still in that space, because, as you know, the tax law changes every year, and quite frankly, I don't have the time to stay up on the tax laws every single year and all the intricacies. So, the next one is, there's a misconception that tax day is always on April 15th. So if you filed your taxes this past year, which I hope you did, you would have noticed the tax day was April 18th. But why is that? Well, tax day was April 18th because the 15th fell on a weekend, right? So if it falls on a holiday or a weekend, it's going to be the next business day, which would be tax day. So why that's important to you is because it's important to file your taxes on time, especially if you owe money. If you owe money, you're going to get interest and penalties month after month until that taxes is due, or you have set up some type of payment arrangement with the IRS, right? So that's really important to be cognizant of that, and make sure that you understand when the deadline is and when you need to file those things on time. The next one is, an extension does not mean you extended your payment. So if you owe money, you have to pay the IRS their taxes now, before that deadline. Just because you extend your return does not mean your payment that you owe, or the amount due that you owe, gets extended. So technically, what we see is, people that extend their tax returns, there's a couple different things. The first one is, someone that is receiving a refund, or has zero tax due, they might extend their return because they're waiting on another tax item that they haven't received yet. Or it could potentially be that they have they've paid quarterly payments on their taxes, because they know they're going to have a large amount of tax due, right? But they're still waiting on a K-1 from a business that they have ownership in, right? So I know some of that might be over your head, or not something that you all have within your life. But as you continue down this path of understanding taxes, it's good to understand every single intricacy of it, because it could influence you starting a business. It could influence you buying real estate, right? To find those tax advantages to be able to save money on your taxes at the end of the day. So, if you extend your pay, if you do an extension, it does not extend the amount owed. Okay, so that's very important to remember. And if you do extend, it gives you 6 more months to be able to file your tax return without any penalty, right? Okay. Um, if you made if your adjusted gross income on your prior year tax return, so 2022 tax return is 73,000 or less, you can file your tax return for free. So, how many of you use TurboTax? I do, right? If you use TurboTax or I mean, there's plenty of other platforms out there. If you make under $73,000 or your tax return shows adjusted gross income of less than $73,000, you can file your taxes for free. So don't go online and pay the $150 of TurboTax if you're under that threshold. And how you can find that is it's on page 1 of your 1040. It's line 11. Okay, so if line 11 says less than $73,000, you can go online and use the IRS free filer tool for free. And they'll walk you through, just like TurboTax does, filing your tax return and save you $150. Okay? You can thank me later for that one. The last one is people believe that when they hire a tax accountant or a CPA, that if something goes wrong on their tax return, that the CPA or the tax preparer is liable for that. And that's just false. Um, while they certainly can get in trouble for doing something incorrectly on your return, if it's just pure negligence, you know, it's very gray, is what I would say. So the rule of thumb is that if you are using a preparer or you're preparing your tax return, you are the person that's liable for what is presented on that tax return. So you are the person that needs to make sure that the tax return is accurate. So that's why we go through some of these things that you need to know, some of these key things, key fundamental tax things that you need to know to make sure that you can avoid situations like that. But at the end of the day, if there are things that are incorrect, you are wrong. And I think that there's this misconception that, oh gosh, if I present something incorrectly on my tax return, the IRS is going to show up my door and they're going to take me away. That's not true. It's not true. They're not going to show up at your door. They're not going to take you away. What's going to happen is they are going to send you a notice saying, hey, we adjusted this. And if you were to do a refund, they're going to reduce your refund by that amount. If you owe money, they're going to say, hey, you owe an additional amount of this, and you have X amount of days to pay it or set up a payment plan. Now, where you do get into those things where, the IRS or the government or where you could get in trouble is where, you're stealing money, right? You're tax evading, right? Those are the things that you want to steer clear of. But if it's a simple just oversight or you made a mistake, like they're just going to correct you and they're going to take their money or tell you to pay them more money. But it's very important that we make sure, for one, that we're not ignoring when we receive things in the mail from the IRS, because that's their form of communication from a notice standpoint, right? It's so important to make sure that we're paying attention to those things, because we do not want to get into a situation where we did not see a notice that was sent and now years and years have passed and interest and penalties have been accruing. That's when people get into back taxes situations, and that's not a great place to be in, because one, it affects your credit. It's going to start to affect your cash flow. It's going to start to affect your budgeting, all of those things, your residual income. So all of those things are going to start being affected. All the things that we've talked about in prior episodes can be affected by one mistake on the tax side. So we want to make sure that we can mitigate that at all costs. Okay. So we talked about today 5 things. Receiving a refund is not necessarily great. You want to make sure that you're getting your money today, not tomorrow. Okay, because one, tomorrow's not promised, right? I want my money today. Tax day is not always on the 15th, right? If it falls on the weekend or it falls on the holiday, it can be on the next business day, right? So, for example, this past year was the 18th. Okay. Um, an extension does not extend the amount due if you owe money to the IRS, right? So if you owe money to the IRS, you need to pay that as quickly as possible, or you need to set up a payment plan. Okay. If line 11 on the front page of your 1040, your tax return says $73,000 or less, you can file your tax return for free. Okay. You can go to the IRS site and use the free IRS filer tool and be able to file your tax return for free. And lastly, you are the only one that's responsible for what is presented on your tax return. So if you lead with that mindset that I am the one that's responsible, one, you're going to learn a lot about taxes, probably a lot of information you either wish you didn't know or you thought you would never know is probably the better phrase. But at the end of the day, it's good to be informed on, what you're doing every year from a tax perspective. So you're the one that's liable. Do not count on just to prepare, at least glance through it and review it yourself. If you have friends or someone you can get a second opinion from, do so, especially if there's a lot of changes year over year compared to the prior year, right? It's easy to compare the year before and the current year and be able to look at them side by side and say, okay, yep, this checks out. Very similar to last year, especially if nothing's changed in your life. But let's say you had a child. Let's say you got married. Let's say that you moved to a different state. Maybe you moved to a state that doesn't have income tax. So like Florida or Texas, right, that doesn't have income taxes but high sales tax. That can change your tax profile quite a bit. So it's very important to be cognizant of those things. So as I always say, it's not about how much money you make. The power is in how much money you keep. I appreciate you guys rocking with me today. I hope that you learned something from a tax perspective, and I look forward to delving a little bit deeper into some of the more challenging tax situations you might see. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shaletta Brundage. I'm a media personality, podcaster, and a business owner, but my most important role is mom. 3 of my beautiful kids have been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. When I didn't know who to trust or where to turn, I found ACRA. ACRA provides home care services to families all over Minnesota. The care is not one size fits all. They know each one of my kids is unique. They listen to what resources we needed and what's best for our family. I've seen my kids grow and thrive with ACRA's in-home care. While autism is the most common diagnosis among ACRA clients, ACRA offers personalized in-home care services for people with disabilities, chronic illnesses, behavioral diagnosis, and mental illness. They work with children, adolescents, and older folks too. Find out more about ACRA at their website, acrahomecare.org. ACRA helps me provide my kids with a better quality of life. They can do it for your family too.
Are you feeling crummy? Maybe you think it's a little food poisoning from the potato salad at the picnic, or summer cold, or your allergies are acting up again. Well, some of these symptoms could be a sign that you have COVID-19. A cough, runny nose, sore throat, and chills could be from COVID. So could muscle pain, headaches, and fatigue, even nausea, diarrhea, or vomiting, and of course, a fever, difficulty breathing, and a loss of your sense or taste of smell. Don't take chances with your health or risk infecting those close to you. Test to find out if you've got COVID. You can get it even if you've had it before and even if you're vaccinated. Contact your local pharmacy or healthcare provider for information about testing.
Children's Minnesota, the leader in specialized healthcare for kids, is here to raise awareness, standards, the bar, the stakes, the question, the curtain. On raising kids' health to the highest priority, kids need equal access to healthcare, more pediatric expertise, a voice for change. Kids need us, all of us. So let's raise them up. Children's Minnesota, the kid experts.
Do you worry that lead-based paint in your older home might be dangerous to your children or kids who visit you? Well, Hennepin County put those fears to rest. Hennepin County offers free lead tests and home assessments. If they find anything, eligible homeowners and landlords can receive up to $15,000 for work on the home, including new windows. The government banned lead-based paint 45 years ago when it was discovered that lead poisoning can affect development and cause permanent damage in young children. But 75% of those homes built before 1978 still contain some lead-based paint. As the paint degrades, it can make dust that little kids ingest when they're crawling and putting things in their mouths. So make sure your home is safe and hazard-free. Learn about testing and that $15,000 grant at hennepin.us/lead control. That's hennepin.us/lead control.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African-American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast-quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.